As we prepare for the word preached, would you join with me your hearts and minds in prayer? O God, may the words of my mouth and the meditations of each of our hearts be found acceptable in your sight. For you are our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. This way of Advent is odd. We prepare a way for one who is already here. Who does that? We do that. Why do we do that? Oh, because we're a fragile and fickle people, easily frightened, easily distracted, often in need of reminding that Emmanuel is God with us, and God is already with us. We are so often weighed down by the unknown, by anguish, by fears, both those unfounded and founded. But here we are, people on a journey. To what? To the creche, to the place where God dwells among us, to God with us, to Emmanuel, to home. The prophet says, at that time, I will bring you home. Except Emmanuel, God with us, reminds us that we are already at home with God because God is already at home with us. And so this Advent journey is about awaiting the already. We await what is already here. And we embark on this journey to a place we already inhabit. The Advent journey reminds me very much of the one Dorothy takes in The Wizard of Oz. There's a line from a prayer we say at Communion and Conversation at Clark Lindsay. We say that this land is not the promised land of our longing, and that is true for Dorothy. Kansas and her home with her Auntie Em is not the promised land of her longing. And so in a moment of wishing for a place with bluebirds and rainbows, she is whisked away to a different place. It's a place that looks just lovely, but honestly, it's just as fraught with problems and obstacles as her home is. Just because you turn on the Technicolor doesn't mean life is better. And so Dorothy tries to get home, and she doesn't make that journey alone. None of us ever do. She journeys with 3 others, each on their own journey, each trying to find their own way, their own thing. One is looking just to have some heart. One is looking for wisdom. And there's one who's trying to not be so afraid. And at the end of her journey, she meets someone named Glenda, a good witch, begs her to help her get home. And Glenda says to her, "You've always had the power to go back to Kansas." Dorothy says, astonished, "I have?" And the Scarecrow says, well, then why didn't you tell her before? And Glenda, much like the prophets who came before her, says, oh, she wouldn't have believed me. She had to learn it herself. And then the Scarecrow says, well, what have you learned, Dorothy? See, Dorothy had the power to go home all along. She just had to recognize that it was there. And so this journey that she takes is much like our journey, where we are awaiting the already. Because the prophet Zephaniah reminds us not to hang our head in sorrow, but to sing aloud. Why? Because we are sons and daughters of Zion. We should shout and rejoice and exult with all of our heart, because the Lord has taken away the judgments against us and turned away our enemies. God is in our midst. There's no need to be afraid. Have courage. Don't fear. And don't let your hands grow weak in the work that you must do, because God is rejoicing over us and renewing us in God's love. All of the disaster will be removed from us. Why? Not because the problems go away, but because we are renewed in here to face a new day. We are changed. And the prophet concludes by saying, at that time, I will bring you home. So see, there is this cyclical journey that the prophet Zephaniah points out to us. Sons and daughters of Zion, you who come from that home and have been on a journey, God will bring you home. You've always had the things that you need to be at home with God. Maybe you just needed to be reminded of them. And that's why we gather here each week, so that we journey together to remind each other together, to have heart and to use wisdom, and to not be afraid. Because no matter here or in some faraway wishing place, there are obstacles to overcome, and we'll make the journey together. Always, always at home with God. Amen.